Hello and welcome to LUMEN EDU International Conference 2020, here online and symbolically in Targoviste at Valahia University from Targoviste. I'm Antonio Sandu, PhD professor at Stefan Mare University from Suceava. Today we will talk about ethical audit in educational institution. This presentation is made during the project Ethical Competence and Academic Integrity in Scientific Research and Education, an FDI project implemented by the Center for Applied Ethics of Stefan Mare University from Suceava. This presentation is made with the support of Center of Research in Social and Humanistic Science from LUMEN Association and Faculty of Law and Administrative Science from Stefan Mare University of Suceava. The management of ethics is one of the parts of management, but is also a part of ethics, of applied ethics, and is an interlocking of these two domains, the scientific domain of management and humanistic sciences of ethics. And this ethical management and management of ethics is two different parts. The ethical management is an obligation for all managers to take ethical decision in managerial activities, but the management of ethics is a process to implement and coordinate the ethics in organization. One part of this management of ethics is ethical audit that involve to make an instrument to organizational evaluation, to put in position to highlight the own standards and the positioning of each stakeholders in organization to ethical values and ethical principles in organization. Ethical audit imposed to pre-exist some ethical instruments such a code of ethics or ethical committee, and most important, an ethical climate in that organization. Such audit involve an evaluation of politics and procedures and the services offered by organization to highlight the consistency of this product with the values and the mission of organization. Ethical audit allowed to identification and to solving the problems, to impact the ethical culture in organization. Ethical audit should be made in order to understand the level of conformity between the organizational values and organizational practice that are meant to put in practice those values. Ethical audit, in the same time, involve the highlight of ethical climate in institution. Such problems that could exist in an organization and could appear in implementation of the ethical policy will also be put in light of evaluation from a member of the audit committee by following the cause of those problems and by identification of possible solution to solve this problem or diminish it. The literature highlights a series of situations in which ethical audit could identify and analyze the causes of such problems that could exist in an organization. There's been a decline of satisfaction rate of organizational members and or those of the beneficiaries of organization, a high rate of denial of the service or the returning of the products in case of academic institution, to discomfort of the students or of the academics, and also scholar leaving, the persons who leave the schools and so on. Also we analyze possible problem with the diminished community support for programs of that institution, educational institution in our case. The conflict of interest that are publicly highlighted, high rate of lawsuits, and or periodic evaluation of organization to highlight the possible crisis that could appear. We can present some stage in making an ethical audit. In our opinion, this model could be implemented by ethical practitioners in fields like education, but also in public health, social work, organizational development, and even in communities. Those stages are taken from the work from the paper of Hoffman that discovered some stage. Qualitative and quantitative analysis of available document in organization that involve the mission of the organization, the ethical policy if it exists, the ethical codes, and so on. Some organizations have an own document of ethical policy, but most of the organizations, especially in our country, and academic or education organization does not have an ethical policy statement, but have an ethical policy involved in code of ethics or other strategic documents such university carta or some other aspects that rules, regulations that clearly states ethical values, ethical principles, and ethical practice that the institution should follow. Also, we will analyze the quality of ethical trainings that are made in organization, if there are some such trainings or not, if those trainings are developed on a regular basis or sometimes and not with continuity, and quality of these trainings, if there is a curricula and that curricula is specially made for the problems in institution, these trainings will be or could be developed after an first ethical audit of the organization. We recommend two stages of ethical audit. First is general diagnosis of the institution, and at this stage the person who realized the ethical audit should give some advices to implement better instruments to increase the ethical performance of organization, and after a while, after time, another audit should verify the implementation of these measures, if that measures have good results, and if it need another measures or other actions to increase ethical climate and organization, and to generally increase the quality of ethics in that organization. We can also make some interviews and focus groups with the members of organization for showing the ethical policies and to compare it with other ethical standards involved in current activity and in offering the services or creating the product of organization. Because some organization, even educational, has in one part services that offered educational services, social services, and cultural services and so on, but also have a specific product. In terms, for example, for university, a product is a specific programs in one area, a curricular area, that is different from other similar programs in another universities, product made by a specific university, and it involves some ethical aspects and ethical progress for the participants for the program, and also it is university, for example, offers services, educational services, such as teaching or research or something like this. But also in university we have products that are results of the research that was made in this institution. We also should investigate the structure of organization and the place of ethical management and the place of management of ethics in institutional structures. An institution could have ethical committee and could have ethical code and so on, but it's not so important in the general structure of the university, for example. It's just a requirement for fulfilling the standards for a good function of the university. But in other institutions, also university or other kind of educational institution, because we refer to educational institution in this presentation, should put a stress in this kind of activity of ethical services, of ethical consultations, of ethical audit on ethical practices in general, and have its own ethical structure. So ethical committee is not only create for sanctioned bad practices in university or in other kind of institution and social work and or in public administration and so on. So committee of ethics could be more than an instrument for sanctions the breach in ethics that could happen in this institution, but also could have active roles in promoting ethical values. So in this case, the management of ethics has a more important role in general structures of this institution than in an institution that ethical committee are only required for sanctions and for analyze the ethical infringements if that exist. And it is important to create such instruments for ethical management, such role of ethical committee to give ethical advices or even ethical counseling or ethical supervision or some other ethical expertise that are needed in an organization. For example, in our university in Suceava, we have a research body for ethical committee for research or an ethical committee of academics. So it's two different body for evaluating ethical situation in ethical situation that occur in the university in normal ethical committee, but to evaluate it the ethical practices involved in research, that is a committee for research ethics and RACs, and we also have a center of applied ethics, in which we have development ethical policies, and we develop an ethical audit in our institution. But before that, the ethical practice are also audited in a general audit of university, and it's part of general audit reports that was made in the previous years. And this is highlighted the importance that our institution gives to ethical practice, but of course every ethical practice should be improved, could be improved at least, and it's important to have an ethical policy that involves not only how to sanction if ethical is breached, but a clear statement of what are the values that are involved in the ethical practice in our institution, that the values are developed in the academic carta. In many academic institutions are also part of the academic carta or academic code of ethics, but it's academic freedom and respect for integrity, respect for autonomy of beneficiary, and so on. These values should be clearly stated in the documents of the organization, and as we can see, it's clearly stated also in our university. Also, in an ethical audit, we should analyze the relation between organization and external environment. There we can evaluate the obligation taken by organization to the outside environment, political, social, cultural, and so on, educational, and how the institution respect the social responsibility of organization. This should be evaluated through analysis of media, for example. If in media appears some articles or presentation about the relations and between institution and community, a good practice, example of good practice of the institution, or members of the institution, or example of bad practice that are highlighted in media, and if such bad practice are put in highlight, how the institution responds to this accusation, or if there are an internal inquiry, or if such inquiry does not happen, and so on. If there are some ethical issues, and these ethical issues are known by the institution, how this institution reacts to this problem, and what are the instruments of identification of ethical issues at the organizational level and at the individual level of the organizational members. Also, we have to analyze the ethical climate, ethical cultures in organization, and the agreement between organizational staff and organizational members that involve the ethical values that the organization promotes. So, for instance, we could have statements about importance of academic freedom, but in practice, when someone wants to put a claim or an allegation, that allegation is not have no response, and so on. Or in another case, if the organization puts an important point on this allegation and understand why these ethical issues appear, and why, and what are the cause of this. Maybe it's a cause in organizational context, in other situation, or even if there is more similar situation, or it's just an isolated situation, that momentary one, and could be solved immediately, or it is necessary long-term solutions. We also have to evaluate the communication and the communicative act that are happened in organization should be evaluated from the perspective of how is ethical communicated. Is ethical communication. The ethical problems or the ethical dilemmas are part of institutional communication, or institution denied existence of ethical issues and does not present such case in communication with the exterior or even with the internal publics of the organization. All these elements could be understand better if in this committee that made the ethical audit is also an external evaluator, that are an ethical expert, have ethical expertise, but is outsider of this of the evaluated institution, that could have axiological neutrality from the institutional politics and problems, and could have also not only axiological but epistemical neutrality when evaluated the institution. In our university, in Stefan Mare University, we start this evaluation. It's an ongoing process at this moment. At this moment, we have some results on the evaluation of instruments, of ethical instruments. The university has all ethical instruments needed. It has the ethical code, ethical committee, two ethical committee. For example, for university institutional problem and for research, has a clear ethical policy, clear ethical value statement, and so on. We now are in the progress with applied of the questionnaires to academic staff and to the students for evaluating how they understand the ethical dimension of academic development of academic practices, how they relate to this ethical dimension of education, and if they know the ethical instruments, the existence of ethical committee, the practice, ethical practice in university, and also their rights and what they should do if they have an ethical issue, or if they have knowledge about an ethical issue, and so on. We hope to have the opportunity to present the final results to you in the next presentation. Thank you very much for being here with us. Hope you have questions to ask, and hope I can answer you in the LUMEN EDU conference 2020. I'm Sandu, and I wish you a very, very, very good day.